The UK already has enough nuclear weapons to destroy the entire planet. Now Boris Johnson wants to order 80 more. Welcome to MPATV. Later on we'll be catching up with this lad and seeing what he's been up to 50 years later.
Equal pay for women! Equal pay for women!
Why apart from equal pay for women are you marching today?
Just because I'm what you call it, a comrade, and they singing equal pay for women. Tories out! Tories out!
Stay with us because we will be revealing the identity of that boy later on. I want to assure viewers that this is not the BBC News, so your mind won't be tricked or damaged in any way. You probably don't need me to tell you that we have a serial liar as Prime Minister and an anti-democratic government of bankers, lobbyists and spivs who are aided and abetted by a news media who serve as spin doctors for 10 Downing Street. I'm old enough to remember protesting against Polaris nuclear submarine missiles back in the 1980s. In the 1980s, the incredible women of Greenham Common led the campaign to get American cruise nuclear missiles removed from the UK. And they won. Here they are in action.
Some 30,000 women wing the 9-mile perimeter of Greenham Common cruise missile base in Berkshire yesterday in an emotional demonstration against nuclear weapons. In such an inaccessible part of the country and in appalling weather conditions, it was a remarkable show of strength of the anti-nuclear lobby.
It all started a long time ago, back in 1982. And I was at the National Film School, and Biban Kidron and I were standing in the queue to get some breakfast, and we'd both received a chain letter, which was a very unusual thing to get. But of course there was no social media, there was no other way of mobilising for these sorts of things. It was wanting women to come to embrace the base. It was a weekend of protest, and we thought, let's go, we'll take a film school van. So that was the motivation for it.
And in some places must have been outnumbered 1,000 to 1 by the
film school then told us that we couldn't take a van unless we were doing a project. So the afterthought was, okay, let's take some equipment. And there was some very old low-band Umatic video equipment. The camera was huge and heavy, and the recorder was a massive thing like this over my shoulder. That's the start. So we headed off on December the 12th. 1982. The weekend that we arrived, we were just charting the various things that had gone on. It was a new protest, and out of that, the Women's Peace Camp evolved at the main gate. I don't think we had any plan as to how long we were going to be there. Once you got involved in the actions and you got involved in being part of the camp, there wasn't any reason to leave. First bits of filming that we did on that Sunday, you can see the police just picking women up, twisting their arms and just throwing them into hedges. And then, of course, bailiffs, the press got increasingly hostile to women at the base. So really, all of the outside agencies became very hostile to the protest itself.
Thanks there to the co-director of the film, carry Greenham home Amanda Richardson. We will be hearing more from Amanda in a later programme. Please remember to sign the CND Stop Trident petition. The Labour Party is completely behind Trident and says support for the UK's nuclear deterrent is non-negotiable. Stay with us because later we'll be asking why are the government sending commissioners into Liverpool. Anyway, it's now time to reveal the identity of this lad.
Equal pay for women! Equal pay for women!
Why, apart from equal pay for women, are you marching today?
Just because I'm what you call it, a comrade, and they singing equal pay for women. Tories out! Tories out! Tories out! Tories out! Tories out! Tories out!
It's thanks to the Secretary of the MPA, Audrey White, that we can reveal the identity of the lad. When she was showed the video, she recognised him without hesitation because it is in fact her brother, Mark Holt. Mark is still, I'm pleased to report, on the march. At the end of that clip, you saw Mark Holt outside a picket line at Lady at Lord John shortly before he went on the March for Jobs in the 1980s. Coincidentally, our producer Haswan Hashim recognised him in some footage taken in London at an anti-war demonstration in 2007. We knew it was Mark because he spoke on one of our podcasts last year. Here he is with a voice from that podcast.
The arms business is not as profitable or as straightforward as it sounds. It's pretty dodgy and it's unstable. We also need, I suppose, to look at what kind of world do we want to create with this kind of business. The eminent journalist John Pilger, in his book Flying the Flag, Arming the World, says that Britain is probably the third largest seller of arms to the world. He estimated that in just one 10-year period alone, that the use of British arms by different regimes around the world had caused the deaths of at least 1 million people. And we are arming Saudi Arabia right now as they drop our cruise missiles and so-called smart bombs on the desperately poor people of the Yemen who are currently suffering a massive famine. Thousands of children are dying, and all we as a country are interested in is selling more dynamite to the Saudis to drop on the poor Yemeni people. So I have to ask you, Phil, is this the kind of world we really want to create? Surely this is not the only show in town, is it? Why do we only have to build fighter planes? You see, the corruption that goes alongside the arms trade probably warps us, and I think it makes us evil. It distorts our economy, and it even distorts our thinking. You see, I think we as a people, I think we are better than this. I think we can be better than this. And this is my question, can we be better than this?
Tories out! Tories out!
So Mark, if you're watching, I suppose you're living proof of the saying, once a comrade, always a comrade. Is there such a saying? Well, thanks to Mark Holt, there is now. I understand Mark is being investigated by the Labour Party. No doubt it's for the historic crime of shouting Tories out when he was 7.
Tories out! Tories out! Tories out!
Keir Starmer clearly wants to keep the Tories in. So I'm not surprised that he's under investigation. Musician, writer and political activist Kareem Dennis is better known by his stage name Lowkey. He first became known through a series of mixtapes he released before he was 18. As a patron of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and an outspoken critic of Western foreign policy and neoliberalism, I was keen to meet up with him the last time he came to Liverpool. He was generous enough to speak to me before his gig.
Stop the War, really, in a sense, are inheritors of a long and proud tradition of the underemphasized, really, in history, who refused to simply go along with what the ruling class were telling them was in their interests. You know, we know that BP were very excited about the upcoming war in Iraq. We know that at one point even Jack Straw managed to persuade Tony Blair to serve as a sort of lobbyist for Siemens, the German phone company, to the United States. We know that Kellogg, Brown Root, Halliburton, you know, these corporations really won big off Iraq. Bechtel, you know, as part of what is a military-industrial destruction construction complex.
Your services abroad, who do they prioritise? Robin Hood in reverse. These robberies aren't secrets, bonuses for bankers and backhanders for arms dealers. Can't cage the alternative.
The point is understanding where you must fit in to that, where you fit into that picture. You know, in a sense, while conscription doesn't exist in this country, through our taxes, we invisibly and silently take part in a conscription-like process. You know, the arms industry in general being the most subsidized industry in this country, but where do we stand in this situation? There is urgency about this, and we can change it because people have before, and people can and do and will again. And you know, the mobilization in 2003 was, in terms of recorded human history, the largest simultaneous mobilization of people at the same time. It was the most opposed war in living memory, certainly, but also it split the ruling class. You know, we can't forget what happened with Andrew Gilligan, with Greg Dyke, with the BBC, with David Kelly, and what these things indicated to us as a population, that there was serious dissent about this war among the ruling class. And actually it bears testament to the extent to which we live in a state of inverted totalitarianism that the war still went ahead. And it discredits the mythology of democracy that we are sold.
In this powerful moment, no more will these cowards sell us out to the donors. We rose like a giant awoken out of his coma. Confront the culture of power with the power of culture. We sing freedom. The public service day, death, the World Bank and IMF visit. The kleptocracy orchestrate and subjugate the corporate state that isn't freedom. Teresa's a terrorist, we could be standing at the precipice of freedom.
Thanks to Lowkey there, who was singing his song The Death of Neoliberalism. What a great title that is. We'll be hearing more from Lowkey in future programmes. Let's take a musical break now and go to the Edinburgh pub in Wavertree, where before the pandemic, musicians would gather every Monday night for a great session of Irish music. I just loved that. Thanks to all the musicians who were recorded there in the Edinburgh pub, known locally as the Eddy, and now I could really do with a pint. 1972 saw the first ever National Building Workers' strike. They picketed building sites in Shrewsbury during the dispute and were prosecuted in Shrewsbury Crown Court in 1973. They became known as the Shrewsbury 24. Merseyside pensioners have always supported the campaign for justice for the 24 pickets. The campaign has been a long, hard slog for all the pickets and their families. 6 of them were imprisoned. Trade union rights are human rights, but the Heath government of the day stitched them up and painted them as thugs and criminals. Their crime was to be part of a trade union campaign to get a decent rate of pay and safer working conditions for all building workers. Last month, the campaign achieved victory. The Court of Appeal quashed the convictions. The lead picket, Des Warren, was sent to prison for 3 years and blacklisted upon his release. As a result, he never worked again and died prematurely in 2004, aged 67. 4 other pickets have also died. Eileen Turnbull from the campaign spoke at a recent MPA meeting and said, "We would like to thank you for all the support you have given to us over the years. You never wavered in that support. Through the hard times, when we faced huge obstacles, your warmth and comradeship kept us going." So it's justice at last for the Shrewsbury 24. Now we need justice for all the other workers who've been dragged through the courts based on fake and manipulated evidence. In a future programme, we'll be discussing the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign with former miner John Dunn. Despite the pandemic, my good friend Jerry the plumber has been out fixing the plumbing of the great and the good. Yesterday he contacted me from the magnificent house of Jacob Rees-Mogg, MP.
Just got back, and I, from old Johnson's house again, and phone call. I answered it, and this bloke was talking. He sounded like he had about 14 plums in his mouth. Anyway, said I'd come highly recommended from Johnson, Hancock, and old honest Bob Jenrick. And said, could I come round and help him sort his boiler out? So off I went down to northwest Somerset to old Jacob Rees-Mogg's house. Absolutely huge, vast it is, stately mansion it is, looked like some kind of theme park from the Victorian era. I wouldn't be surprised if it had been basically bought by slave money. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but there they all were, women and children in rags, barefooted, working in the fields. Knocked on the door. Bloke answers the door, top hat, morning suit. "Hello," he says, "you must be Jerry the plumber. You better go round the back to the tradesman's entrance," he said. He showed me to his boiler. Unbelievable. It was ancient. Anyway, he reckons it's cutting edge. I said, "What does it run on?" He says it runs on coal. I tell you, there was lead pipe everywhere. And I tell you, I reckon he had grade 10 lead poisoning, because it would just show why he's absolutely off his rocker. I said to him, why are all these children, how come they've all got bow legs? And he said, he said, the thing is, he said, that, since we've left Europe, he said the key is that our children have got our diseases back, and they've now got British rickets, and the children are happier and better off for it. That was it. And he said they seem to work much better when you don't feed them very much. Anyway, I looked up his chimney, and there was 4 or 5 children up there. Oh, blimey, I think I can hear him. I better look like I'm working, Phil, or something. Yeah, oh, don't look too good there, Mr. Mogg. Anyway, I'll have Have it all sorted in a minute. Blimey.
Thanks to Jerry there for his candid report from the home of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Thanks also to his apprentice, Jackie, who recorded the report on her phone. Last year, Government Minister Robert Jenrick rushed through planning permission for his friend, property developer Richard Desmond, in the process of which Mr. Desmond saved hundreds of thousands of pounds in tax. He subsequently donated, wait for it, £12,000 to the Tory party. Of course, the two events were entirely unconnected. You might well want to give the minister, let's call him Honest Bob from now on, the benefit of the doubt and claim that this was all above board. But many wouldn't. Honest Bob has been in the news again recently. He's sending commissioners appointed by him into Liverpool City Council. Unsurprisingly, many people are opposed to his plans, and recently a socially distanced rally was held to oppose the move. At the rally, I spoke to two members of the MPA, Vice Chair Roger Bannister and Secretary Audrey White.
They're opposed to the commissioners coming in because it takes democratic power over the council away from the electors and puts it into the hands of these commissioners. They're appointed by a Tory government to take over an overwhelming Labour council. And we say that without any desire to unnecessarily defend that council, because the MPA has had many differences with their policies over the years, particularly in relation to cuts, particularly in relation to the handling of the care homes crisis, when two of them were threatened with closure, and subsequently they handed them to another private sector provider instead of taking them over themselves. So it's not blind political allegiance to the council, it's about democracy. If there's problems in this city, the elections are just around the corner. Let's find out what's going on and let the people of Liverpool decide how the city's run. We do not need these commissioners.
The answer isn't to bring in Tories who, how dare they talk about corruption. From every single day we're seeing the corruption of the Tory government, and they've got the goal to send Tory commissioners to this city. We don't have a Tory councillor, we don't have a Tory MP. This city doesn't like Tories. We don't want Tories here. We'll make the decision ourselves over who should be managing our city, and certainly wouldn't want any Tory whatsoever.
Community activist Chantel Lunt eloquently summarised a sense of anger about the government's intervention.
When Keir Starmer stands idly by, and what's the point of having an opposition if they're just going to say, all right, go on. How is Tory corruption better than any corruption we've got going on over here? How are people who've given away medical deals to the mates and are as corrupt as anyone I know and have tax havens and tax avoidance and blinking, how are they better than anything we can address within Labour? They're not better. They're not going to make this city better. They're going to destroy it bit by bit by bit until we don't even recognise ourselves. So if there was ever a time to stand and make your voices heard, it is now. Now is the moment.
In our last programme, we reported on the weekly vigils outside one-stop shops that Liverpool City Council proposes to close. Well, the protests are continuing, and I was pleased to speak recently to former Labour councillor Harry Smith about why he was fighting against council cuts.
Well, I went on the council in 1980, and I could see the way the services were being devastated by the Lib Dems and the Tories. And as a Labour group then, we took a decision to oppose the cuts and wage a major campaign. So when we were elected, we went about stopping the cuts and stopping the increases in things like rents. The rents were the second highest outside of London, and we froze the rents. And we gave an undertaking that we wouldn't put the rates up to compensate for Tory cuts. We had a major campaign, and anyone who's seen the pictures of Castle Street the way the demos and that was, and it had an effect on the Tories. And what we've actually seen now is, when you do nothing, they just come back year after year for cuts. There's literally now in Liverpool City Council nothing to cut. And we were always told, well, make a few cuts now and it'll get better. In 1983, multi-millionaire Lord Kinnock said, the time's not right to have a fight. Well, I was 33 then, I'm 71 now, and I'm still waiting for the time to be right to have a go, because of course the time is now is right. Tomorrow is too late, as it's been proved.
Thanks for joining us today, and thanks to all the participants in today's programme. Next time we will be looking at the growing opposition to the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. We'll also be examining the strange case of foundation homes set up by Liverpool City Council, and we'll be asking, where did all the money go? You can email us at contactmpatv@gmail.com. The programme was produced by Hasman Hashim, so from both of us, we wish you well, stay safe, and solidarity.